We're talking all about strategic referral partnerships in this quick take episode of the Real Estate Law podcast. My name is Jason Muth with Pride Away Stays and Straightforward Short-Term Rentals. I am not a real estate agent myself, but I'm married to a real estate broker. So we talk about this kind of stuff all the time in our household. We went to Justin Stoddart with Think Bigger Real Estate to talk about strategic referral partnerships and how people can add value to their clients. This is more relevant now than ever before. All the NAR lawsuits that you see on the news these days talking about real estate professionals' commissions, people are now having to provide their value and prove it more than ever before. So give a listen to this quick take. Justin talks about how you can start building strategic referral partnerships with your network and with your extended network. And now, as you're evolving how you have to prove this to people to make sure that you're still getting paid as a real estate agent, these words ring more true now than ever before. So give a listen. Lots has been going on in the news with banking and real estate across the country. You're working with agents and you're coaching them, and they're probably coming to you with lots of questions about how to improve their business because things are just not like what they used to be. So what are you hearing out there from some of your coaching clients?
What we're seeing is that the casual buyers and sellers that are oftentimes coming into the market in the spring are sitting on the sidelines. A phrase that oftentimes our agents are hearing more often than they like to hear, which is, we're going to wait and see what happens. In fact, I just had a client yesterday. I was talking to her. She said, I had a client that was ready to write $1 million offer, and he decided he was going to just hold off because of what's been happening with the banking situation. And prior to that, it was a very common conversation for people to be saying of like, there's a lot going on with inflation. There's a lot going on with rates, a lot going on in Europe, right? I mean, I think we're just going to wait. I think people just, whenever they feel unsettled, they stop and they don't take risks. They just want to hold their money tight. They just want to not do anything crazy. And because there's a lot of uncertainty going on right now, that's the market that we're in. And so, and that coupled with the raise of interest rates last year, sellers are really still in love with and attached to last year's equity, and buyers are really attached to last year's buying power. And those two are not on the same plane right now. And so that happens in every shift, but this one was drastic in part because rates jumped so quickly that it's just taking longer for sellers to come back down to where it's kind of more of an equilibrium, and buyers to come up to what their new kind of buying power is. So, we're seeing that agents who in previous years in this spring market right now were selling X number of homes, they're X divided by 2, some of them X divided by 3, right? I've had a number of people tell me I haven't sold a home. This is so weird. I haven't sold a home in 6 months. And so I think that's the reality that many agents are facing. And not all agents, some agents are doing just fine, maybe not doing as well as they'd like to, but they're doing okay. And so the overall landscape is that I am going to have to really take a look at how I'm getting business, because it's not going to just come to me. It's going to be intentional. It's a skill-based market. I'm going to have to be very good at, I can't pass over the times that I'm supposed to be proactively generating new business. I can't just shrug my shoulders and say, I'll get to that tomorrow. Like, it's no longer a nicety, it's a necessity. We have to be very intentional about growing our businesses right now.
We only have you for a short time, so I really kind of want to jump into that. If, like any agent, if they're struggling to have kind of a lot of that easy business that was coming to us in the past few years, what can we be doing to really be more intentional about finding the business that's going to come next and feed our families?
I love that topic, Rory. I appreciate you asking it, because the traditional models tell us that we build a big database, and from that database will come a smaller number of referrals, right? To the tune of about 10%, let's say. So let's say a warm market sphere-based business, if properly nurtured, should produce about a 10% return. In other words, 100 people in a database, well nurtured, should produce about 10 deals a year, right? And that's statistically across the board. Some are higher, some are lower, but you could kind of expect on that. Now, in a year like this, it might be closer to like a 7% return, right? Maybe even a 5% return. So we have to take a look at, okay, what I can either settle for less and adjust my business expenses and lifestyle expenses accordingly, which is not a bad idea to do. But there's another way where you don't have to necessarily settle. And I think that's the magic of what we're teaching right now and the great results we're helping agents to get. And if you were to take a look at that situation where maybe a 10% return on a database is turned into a 5 to 7% return on a database, rather than saying, well, I guess I just need to grow my database bigger and bigger and bigger and have more conversations and work harder and put food on the table, but not be there at the dinner table when it's served, right? Which is reality for many real estate agents, especially in this market, is like, I just got to put food on the table, but sorry, kids, sorry, sweetheart, I'm not going to be there to enjoy it with you. And sometimes we got to do what we got to do, right? And I commend anybody that does that, but I'm going to give you a perspective right now that will cause you to maybe rethink this a little bit, is that scenario, the working the additional long hours and having more and more conversations, is based on the fact that we know that we're having to sort through more people to find the highly motivated, right? Those that are highly motivated to buy or sell this year. We just have to have more conversations to find those that are not casual buyers and sellers, but are the real like need to buy, need to sell buyers and sellers. So what if rather than, and I'll compare a typical database to a bale of hay, right? And in there, we know that there are needles, right? It's like needle in a haystack. There are people who have to buy, have to sell. They're in there somewhere. So what do? I got to go sort through more hay and maybe look through more hay to find the needles. That's what traditional thinking tells us. However, what I would recommend is rather than taking that route, why don't we just go looking for stacks of needles? Instead of looking for more bales of hay to find the needles, what if we just identified a way to, where are the stacks of needles? It's not the hay that I want. Right? And for some reason, we've got in our head that if I want needles, then I got to go find hay. And that's not necessarily the case. We want the needles. So how do we go find the needles? And here's what this metaphor means, is that there are highly motivated buyers and sellers in this market. And oftentimes those that are highly motivated is because they're going through some sort of life transition that's forcing their hand to be highly motivated in this market. Because if you have the luxury to wait, sure, why not? Let's just see what happens, right? But if by chance you're going through what I call any one of the 8 Ds, call it divorce, right? You might not have the luxury to continue to live in that same house for a while, right? Diamonds, right? You're forming a new household. You're getting more serious about life, right? Diapers. You just added a new baby. We don't have room. I'm working from home and I've got a new baby here. This isn't going to work. We need a bigger home, right? Somebody passes away. Mom can't stay in that house by herself anymore. We got to sell the house, right? Devastation, right? In which maybe somebody loses a job. That's happening, right? We have people who maybe some sort of natural disaster, right? Like devastation forces the hand. Some of the other ones include like new destination, right? People moving from cold Boston down to sunny Florida, right? So there's any number of things that are moving people to be highly motivated in this market. And that's the reality of housing. The beautiful thing is housing and shelter is not going out of style. However, people casually buying real estate, that is out of style for the moment. So we have to, again, hone in on the people that are really focused, really motivated in this market. And so in other words, I would compare those people to being stacks of needles. Well, how do we, where are these stacks hanging out? Well, if we say, I'm going to focus on people who are going through a divorce, then you could go find a strategic referral partner of being a divorce mediator or, a family law attorney, right? If you're talking about people who are, let's say they're, diamonds, kind of using that D, right? People who are wedding planners, diapers, or people who do birthing classes, right? These are professionals whose businesses deal with people right around a life transition. And as a result, you can rest assured that they're dealing with a lot of people who are going to be needing to buy, needing to sell. So again, rather than looking through the masses, looking for the needles of haystacks, let's just go right to the people that already have the relationships who are dealing with people that are going to need that now.
All those connections are critically important for this. How can somebody get a connection, or actually, I should say, how can an agent provide value to somebody who's in one of those professions instead of just approaching them as a prospective taker of their business?
Yeah, I love that, Rory. You've actually identified some very key points as to why this oftentimes does not work very well. It's because real estate agents, even though they may be very friendly and have beautiful cards and have a great elevator pitch, when they show up to get, even in some of the kindest language that has been invented for real estate agents, like, oh, by the way, I'm never too busy for your referrals. There's nothing wrong with that line when it's people who already love you. But when you're approaching a new professional, it's nice and it may work for your sphere, but it's not designed to work for a business owner. And they know right away that you're there to get something, just like every other real estate agent, that has maybe come in the door to solicit their business as well. And that's exactly who you are, is you're a solicitor because you're there to get something. Your question is uber wise, because in order for this to work, it can't be about getting something. Because if so, you'll go to the back of the line behind the 10 or 12 other real estate agents that they already know, which means this isn't going to be like a really viable option for you to generate business now. The perspective needs to be exactly what you described, which is with the ultimate goal being of how do I make it so easy to refer me? It's almost as easy as breathing. Like it just falls out of their mouth because they're already talking about me in their existing client meetings. Like I've made it to where real estate is coming up in their meetings. And when you start to think, okay, then how do I reverse engineer that? How do I work backwards from that? It is exactly, you have to seek a warm introduction. In fact, from day one, you need them from the very first contact or the first time they hear about you. It needs to trigger in their mind that this is not a common real estate agent. And so what we teach is to first and foremost be intentional about who is the person that you want to be serving. The ideal avatar could be a senior, right? A senior citizen. It could be a first-time home buyer. It could be somebody relocating to a new destination. Identify who is the person that you are uniquely set up to serve. Once you have that person identified, then identify who is the professional that already has a relationship with that person. So that I don't have to go out and try and find those people. I just go to the stacks of needles where they're already hanging out. And then you seek a warm introduction to that person. So you're not going to solicit in. And the introduction is going to be crafted by you. In other words, you're going to give us some bullet points, very similar to how I gave you guys some bullet points on here's Justin and here's who we're interviewing today. I didn't leave that up to you. So it's like, well, Justin's a guy that has something to share with us, right? Which you guys are more intelligent than to introduce me like that. You sought out for me, give us some bio points. Very similarly, you're going to give the person who's introducing you some bio points so that the audience hears about you in the best possible frame. And so, depending upon who you're talking to, you want to craft that to where when they say, "Oh, interesting. This doesn't even sound like a common real estate agent," right? Some of the phrases we like to use is, "This is a wealth advisor for your real estate portfolio," right? This is someone who helps manage your wealth in real estate. This is someone who helps grow people's wealth through real estate. When all of a sudden you're being introduced to a financial advisor, for example, in that way, they're like, "Huh, that's interesting. I want to meet this person." Like that kind of sounds like what I do, right? But in real estate, that's interesting. So now all of a sudden, from the very onset of this introduction, you sound different. When you show up in that meeting, which is step 3 of our model, show up in that meeting, you are showing up not to deliver your cards in your dog and pony show and say, I'm never too busy for your referrals. You're there to take off the real estate agent hat and put on the business consultant hat. You're there to learn about their business. First and foremost, you want to see if there's somebody who you could integrate into your practice. If there's somebody who you could talk about frequently to your clients, like, do they fit the bill? If not, right, then of course it's a short meeting. But if they are, you're there to listen for challenges that they're having in their business. Like, where are they at? Where are they headed? What's their plan to get there? What bottlenecks are you experiencing? And you're looking for ways that you can leverage your network and your knowledge to add value to the business. And so the day after the meeting, you're following up saying, "Hey, I heard what you said yesterday about having difficulty in finding and keeping good paralegals. I have someone in my network that actually works to find paralegals for people. Is it okay if I make an introduction?" Right? Now you might be saying like, "Well, I don't know if I know how to do that." If you want this strategic referral partnership, which by the way has the ability to send you 1 or 2 warm referrals a month, then get to work, be resourceful. Who do you know who might know? You're 1 or 2 introductions away from solving everybody's problems who has them. So get resourceful and bring value to the business without expecting anything in return. Mm-hmm. Once they're extremely appreciative and they recognize, number 1, you were introduced differently. Number 2, you came in the meeting and talked about me, not you. Number 3, you followed up with value. The final step is to add value to their clients through them. So one thing that real estate agents have an uncanny ability to do is to create a current comparative market analysis for people. And when you give that information to a financial advisor, they're able to better serve their clients. They want to talk about real estate. That way their clients don't go buy real estate without telling them. They don't go sell real estate without telling them. And you can actually arm them and equip them with the ability to talk about real estate in every one of their annual reviews, which ought to be happening about 1 per day, by the way, 1 to 2 per day in the average financial advisor's database. You can imagine how many real estate related conversations they're having. And oh, by the way, you don't have to say, oh, by the way, because your CMA is in that meeting with them. You're there in the meeting with them to where you don't have to, it's not hard to get a referral from that person anymore, because when they mention, I think we're going to sell a couple of rental properties and, roll that into an Airbnb asset, at that coastal town where we, want to spend some time as a family. you've already done the work on a couple of rental properties. Like, well, here's somebody who already has some knowledge about the property. There's someone who at least you should talk to. That came from their financial advisor, right? And that's a much better endorsement than an online lead where 3 other people are seeing who can call them back the fastest. That's the world where margins and autonomy go away. And that's where most real estate agents are like, I don't want to do this anymore. Or we don't get a really high professional group of people, right? We get people who are just solicitors. And so they get treated like solicitors. And we wonder why our margins are being compressed. It's because we're acting in the same way that we are asking to be treated. And so if we really want to show up as professionals, get paid as professionals, then we ought to maybe get introduced from other professionals and add the kind of value that other professionals would add. And that's really the path to having a referral flow to clients in this market who are highly motivated to buy and sell, to where you don't have to settle your numbers and say, well, I guess I'll just settle for less. I hope the market gets better next year, right? You don't have to have that conversation. You can say, okay, what do I need to learn? Who do I need to become? And what strategic referral partners do I need to add significant value to in order to produce that referral flow to those that will make a move this year?
And there is another Real Estate Law Podcast quick take. For the full episode, please go to YouTube or iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to or heard that quick take. We're also on realestatelawpodcast.com, where you can get all of our episodes and information about the show. On behalf of attorney broker Rory Gill, this is Jason Muth. Thank you for listening.